So much for joining. I'm sorry about that. Okay, is that better? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. I think hopefully everybody else can hear you. There's a little bit of echo on your end there. All right, well, I think that there's a little bit of audio problem that they're happening on our end. So that means that I don't get a little introduction, but y'all really don't care who I am anyway. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this party on the road here. My name's Kyle James. I'm the CEO at NewCloud. I work really, really closely with Ann and the rest of the team over at Converge. And, they asked me to share with you guys, to put on a webinar with them to talk about SEO for the modern college newsroom, how to get more out of your news. So hopefully the survey's still working. I wanted to kind of start out this presentation, just ask a little survey question. Hopefully that popped up for you guys of, who out there manages your college newsroom? Yes, I'm in charge of it. Yes, I'm involved, or no. This just helps me get a little bit better understanding of kind of some of your, your relation to the newsroom as we talk through this subject, so that I can, know whether I'm directly talking to you or this is something that you'll probably be taking back to, other people on your team there. So we'll give it just a few more minutes, or a few more seconds here to let everybody get a chance to vote, and we'll get those results. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Becky, you want to close that poll and see if the results pop up here? If that's something you got to share with us. So 11% of you are in charge, 36 involved, 36% involved, and 25% no. Okay. Okay, that's kind of a good mix there. People are kind of all over the place. Not a problem. Good to know. So let's get going with this party. Just a little quick background about who I am. Why is this guy on here telling us about SEO? I spent years as a college webmaster at Wofford College before starting up .edu Guru, which any of you might have heard of it. It's an industry higher education blog. And also I spent years at HubSpot, higher education, or I guess that's an internet inbound marketing company, if you will. Really working with a lot of schools and businesses, teaching them how to do inbound marketing, of which SEO is a big, big key piece of. And now I work full-time at NewCloud, which is my own company where we do interactive campus maps for college universities. So that's, a little bit about who I am and maybe why I have a little bit of background and have the right to talk about such a subject here. And where I really want to start is just kind of throwing out this, high-level question. Let's start with this fundamental question. If people can't find it, does it matter? That's what we really have to think about when we think about SEO. SEO stands for search engine optimization. And, when you think about search engine optimization, it kind of really comes down to the fact that Google has created a multi-billion-dollar company answering that very fundamental question. I think last I looked, they're over $250 billion in their market cap. There's over 3 billion searches run per day through Google. Obviously, people being able to find stuff on the web matters a whole heck of a lot, And us in higher education have to really think about it from a lot of different audiences, right? different people look for things differently, and different people care about different sorts of content. College websites are very, very big beasts that serve a whole lot of different audiences, alumni, current students, future students, faculty and staff, board members, sports fans. But I really want to focus the point of this kind of conversation, this talk today. Let's not forget about the news, and let's not forget about journalists, because they're a very, very important audience. And I think it's safe to say that most every college out there, prestige is a big important piece of the mix. Getting your information out there, sharing stuff, and getting it picked up by the media is awesome. It's a nice pat on the back, and it's something that the higher-ups really want to have happen. The difference is, though, is we have to keep in mind or just remember that journalists work under a little bit different guidelines or different structure than most of our other audience. They're under very tight work deadlines. A lot of times they want that article, that story they're working on up the next day. And, they want to be able to get that information as soon as possible. And I think that's where the web really comes into play, because so much of the time, if they need to talk to someone, they'll just go look on your website first, and then if they find some interesting information there, then they'll try to reach out and contact somebody. And I think it kind of really changes up the game. And just to give you a quote here, I think you'll see a link in the bottom here to NN Group, which is a great quote, I think. Usability, ultimately, PR-related usability comes down to a simple question. Why spend a fortune on outbound PR trying to pitch journalists when you neglect simple steps to increase the effectiveness of inbound PR, satisfying journalists who visit your website? Well, first of all, I think there's one important point in this statement is, who out there has a fortune to spend on outbound PR, right? Like, we all know what's happened in higher education the last 5 years. Budgets have been cut. Money is very, very tight. We don't have the money to go out there and afford, PR agencies to go pitch articles to journalists and newspapers and magazines and things like that anywhere like we used to. But I think also with the way that whole industry has been disrupted, they're much more trying to keep things tight and keep costs down. And so they're relying just as much on the web now to get their information as fast as possible instead of doing a lot more of the traditional means. And I think it's so important for both sides to really realize this and get on board with it. And I think, obviously SEO goes to everything, but really talking about it from the newsroom angle here. So rankings is a number game, and I'm talking about search rankings. You pull up a result in Google, and there's 10 things that show up, and you can go through pages and pages of results. But ultimately, it comes down to a numbers game. And what I mean by it's a numbers game is simply the biggest stack wins. And what this means is think of it if I've got a website with 100 pages on it, and you've got a website with 1,000 pages on it. Who do you think is more likely to win? Who has the biggest stack? Obviously the person with 1,000 pages, right? And so much of that matters in search results because the bigger sites simply have more credibility, more authority. They've been around longer. They have a bigger stack, so they win. But it's also important to think about content in this annuity format too. I think we're all familiar with interest and how time works with money, right? That as you accrue interest on money, it compounds over time. The same thing happens with content in the way that it helps with search results. Meaning, if I've got 100 pages on my website, let's say that I get 10 visitors a month from it this month, right? I also get 10 visitors a month every month from here on out, and I'm only adding content as we go. So if I take that 100 pages and put it up to, let's say, 1,000 pages, instead of getting 10 visits a month per page, well, I'm probably getting something like 15 visits per month per page. Simply because my footprint's bigger, I've got more authority, I've got more credibility, and I've built up that annuity over time. And this is all part of the game, that it's really fundamental stuff that if you kind of step back and think about it, it makes a lot of sense, but so much of the time, people don't think about it. I live and think about this stuff way too much. So the question you have to ask yourself is how can you compete? And I'm specifically talking about competing from a newsroom standpoint here, but obviously the same sort of stuff applies to your whole website. But from a newsroom standpoint, competition is really tricky because you're not necessarily just competing with other college newsrooms. You're also competing with news sites. If you've got a research institution that's doing great research, well, chances are that maybe you're doing a little bit more competition with, scientific journals, things like that. For news, sharing news, you could be competing with the local newspaper's website, the New York Times. There's a whole wide range of things. And when they were talking about sites like the New York Times, well, then we're not the big fish in the big pond anymore, are we? We're kind of a little fish compared to those guys. So there is some competition there, but there's ways to leverage things and take advantage of it. And what I really want to talk about today, that's kind of all introduction to where we stand here. I've broken up this whole talk kind of into two segments. The first is kind of, the ABCs of SEO, the ABCs of search engine optimization. Some of you, this is probably going to be the basics. You'll probably fall asleep during this part. I promise I hope to keep it entertaining a little bit, not spend a whole lot of time on it. But the second part, I like to kind of call the quadratic equation piece. A lot of one-off subjects where we just talk about a lot of different things that do matter and how they matter to search engine optimization. And hopefully in that section, everybody will have at least one or two light bulbs go off. They're like, oh, you know what? I've never thought about that before, but that makes sense now that you've explained it that way. I can take advantage of that. And really, that's the hope of my talk today, is I want everybody to have one or two of those moments where there's something applicable you can take away from this presentation and go do today. Go apply today to your newsroom or somewhere else on your website. So first of all, what SEO is not. And SEO is not pixie dust. It's not snake oil. And I like to kind of start this because I'm sure every one of you that works with a website, maybe some of you are website managers, things like that, you probably get daily or weekly emails from SEO firms in India telling you how badly you're missing out on traffic and you're not ranking for this and they can help. And it's really given it a black eye. SEO's gotten this black eye from these, scavengers, if you will, kind of doing that. And I think it's very comparable to what we think of with snake oil, right? That 200 years ago, we had this guy come into town on his horse, pulling a big old carriage behind him with, a gigantic crates and crates of snake oil. And he would come and present it to you and tell you that it would solve any problem that you have. And I think a lot of us feel the same way that we do about those kind of snake oil salesmen that we do about SEO firms now. Oh, great, sure, you can cause every problem I have. Doubt it. Leave me alone. Marking this email as spam. And unfortunately, I feel like it's given it such a bad name, bad reputation. And the truth is, it's not really that hard to optimize, to do SEO, search engine optimization, correctly. It's just a matter of some time and some discipline. What SEO is, it's all about usability and accessibility, and I'm going to probably hit on this, many times as we go through this presentation. But a great starting point, if you've never read this book, Steve Krug's Don't Make Me Think, A Common Sense Approach to Web Usability, it's a must-read. It's 100 pages. You can read it in an hour because it's lots of fun pictures, lots of comic strips that, break it down in kind of Dilbert terms. About how to do web design, how to do content for the web. It is a different beast, and it really comes down to, if people come to your website and have to think to figure things out, you're already failing. And we really have to take that into context here, because it is a usability thing, and the accessibility piece really comes into it too, as we think about search engines. And what I mean by that is we've all heard the story of three blind mice, right? Well, your search engines are the three blind mice. The way the search engines search the web, if you will, is they crawl it, they spider it, however you want to define it. They send out these bots that go out and just suck in content. Well, guess what? This is a computer bot. It can't see pretty pictures. It can't see your beautiful CSS design, and it sure has a hard time looking at Flash. So they're blind. They basically can consume the text content and any sort of meta elements to describe and define that website. If you want to see what I'm talking about here, there's a browser called Lynx browser, LYNX. Just go type in Lynx browser later on today in Google, of all places, and it'll help you find it. But you can see, exactly what a search crawler looks at when it sees your page. it sees nothing but the text because it's a blind, dumb search bot. So that's why the accessibility comes into such importance. But also, all public institutions are required by law to be 508 compliant, web accessible. The great thing about that is if you're actually doing those things, you're helping your search engine rankings a ton because that accessibility is the same accessibility that really helps out search engines, index and crawl content. So by the numbers a little bit, the average site, higher ed site, gets about 30% of its traffic on any given day delivered to it by search engines. Approximately 70% of that traffic is delivered by Google. So if we're talking about a large college website, we're talking about the whole web property. If you get 1 million visits per month, we're talking about 300,000 visitors who visit your website through search engines. Like I said, I used to work at Wofford College. We had about 250,000 visitors per month. And I'm not separating that out into unique visitors. I'm just saying 250,000 visitors. Because, sometimes people will find your site about certain things on Google. Actually, quite frequently they will. So you can quickly see how this is a very large, important part of your visitors to your website. As we talk about a website being kind of the storefront of the school, this public face that's open 24/7, why would you not want to have as many visitors find it as you can? If you look at Google Analytics later today and your number's a little bit greater than 30%, that means you're probably doing this stuff better than the people that are below 30%. So it's kind of a quick gauge you can see saying, are we actually doing this well or not well? How does your organic search traffic break down in your overall traffic? And the way that search engines work is by keywords, right? We've probably all heard of it. And you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. When you go to Google, you type in a keyword. You type in what you want to find. And I think, if we're all honest, this is where long-tail keywords come into play. Something like computer science is a great term, but it's not very specific. It's not very exacting of what I'm looking for. Or something like computer science degree South Carolina is much more specific. It's much more exacting of what I'm looking for, and I'm more likely to get the results I'm wanting. And if we think about it, I think we're all getting better and better at using Google this way anyway, right? When we go to search engines, we don't just type in one word or two. We type in a whole sentence sometimes of this is exactly what I'm looking for, give me some results. And it's important to optimize your content that way. And a kind of a horror story I love to give is I was working with a company out of Charlotte who did a bunch of web development. And they were telling the story about how, they used to optimize their content to rank around the keyword Charlotte Web. Sounds great, if I'm a web team or web developer company in Charlotte, that's probably my term. Well, but think about that. I'm sure you're all laughing right now because we all know that Charlotte's Web is also a very popular name of a kid's book, right? So someone pulls up those results, it's very, confusing about exactly what they're looking for. So the longer tail, the more specific keyword you can use to define your content, the better, the better. And with that, these keywords really kind of go in two places. They kind of make up this SEO universe. It's all on-page SEO and off-page SEO. So real quickly, on-page SEO kind of breaks down into these 5 elements. And if you want to think about it in pixie dust terms again, we'll get Tinkerbell here to sprinkle your SEO across your website, these 5 places here. Page titles, URLs, meta descriptions, headers, and meta keywords. Page titles, real self-explanatory. It's that thing that's on the top of your web browser. It's that element in the HTML code that says title that actually defines the page. When we're looking at pages, we don't see it, but this element actually tells search engines what it is, and it matters there, and it lives on top of your browser window. The URL is, well, it's the URL. And look at these 2 examples on the bottom. The first one, President Obama visits campus, and the second one, content ID equals 4225972. Think about that. Like, we're going back to the dumb blind users. Which one's a better accessible URL? The one that's got the keywords in it, right? The one that's got the keywords in it. And this, we'll come back to this theme over and over. This is the common mistake that people make, especially when we're talking about newsroom content, because a lot of time it's run by a CMS. and it just puts out an ID number at the end of the URL, change depending on what page it is. But that's a bad SEO use because it's a bad usability issue. Just as it matters, as you can kind of see in these two URLs, it also matters when people copy and paste links and send them to friends. If I've got these two URLs sent to me in two different emails, which one do you think I'm more likely to click on? Probably the one that's a little bit more descriptive, right? So headers, we can think of headers as just semantic markup. Your H1s, your H2s, you want to include keywords in your headers. And if you're still like, well, what are headers? Think of it like Word document, right? Semantic markup is this term of breaking up content. And it's just important to remember that on the web, people don't read. They're lazy. They scan. So headers kind of help them determine what that section of content is and if they want to read it or not. And this is also great for search engine because they're dumb, blind users, and headers have more emphasis, more authority about what that page is about than the rest of the content. The same kind of idea works with bold content. When you put something in bold, you're putting a little bit more emphasis on it, and it's visually appealing because people see those things stand out, but it also stands out to search engines as these keywords or whatever's in this bold text is a little bit more important on this page than the rest of the stuff. Meta descriptions and meta keywords, really straightforward. It's some more meta elements, if you will. The big thing to think about with meta description specifically is, this is a search result, for example. This is something you would typically see in Google. And notice the two big things that point out your page title and meta description, things that you don't normally associate with the content on your website, but that is your call to action in your search result. That's what makes someone say, I want to click on this result versus something else. And that's why you need to do it right, because that's ultimately what makes them decide if they want to be part of that 30% that visits your site or the 30% that visits someone else's site. And meta keywords, at this point in time, they have no major impact on search results. People were stuffing them so bad a decade ago that the search engines kind of just threw them out. But that doesn't mean that they're not important for helping you categorize your content. And especially as we're talking about newsroom content, it's very, very important to help you categorize newsroom content, whether it's a release or it's an article about something related to a new play going out at school, or it's some new medical research that your graduate program's working on or whatnot. It's very important that you can segment that out because it's also a good user experience. If there's a way that users can search your newsroom by categories or word clouds or tag clouds or whatever, even search engine categories help it distinguish a little bit more relevance around keywords. So they're still good to use, but they're not going to have the impact directly on your search results. So the other piece is off-page optimization. And we've all heard that content's king. So in my kind of opinion, links must be clean. And the reason for this is think about ranking in search engines as a voting game, right? When we vote for president, they count up all the number of votes, and whoever has the most votes wins. The same thing works in SEO. When Google is out there crawling the web, it sees all these links all over the place, and it counts them up. And whichever pages have the most sites linking to it, that's how it knows. It's one of the big ranking factors. It says this is one of the most important pages on this subject. So it's a vote. Every time someone links to a page, it's a vote of confidence saying this is a credible source on this subject. And all the keywords in all these different places help it identify that this is what this page is about. So inbound links are very, very important for off-page optimization. And really, off-page SEO is 75% of the equation. It matters so much more than on-page SEO to how you rank in Google, which is kind of a turnoff because we have so much more control over what's on our website compared to what's off of it. Site authority, that's a big, big thing. We'll talk about that here in a second. Anchor text, what is the text that you're using to link to the site? Really, really important. And social sharing is becoming more and more important. And we'll talk about that in a second. But first, I want to talk about anchor text, and I'm sure many of you out there that work with websites are probably shaking your head. Yep, I have this problem all the time. Here's a great example you can take back and share it with some of your content producers about why they do not want to use click here as the link. And you know what I'm talking about. When someone's writing a piece of content, they're right here, hey, you know, blah, blah, blah. If you want to learn more about this subject, click here. And click here is the anchor text of that link. Well, go to Google and pull up and do a search for click here, and you'll see results like these. Adobe Reader, right there, number 2. W-9 form on the IRS website. Apple QuickTime, Google Maps. And you're probably asking yourself, what the heck did any of these guys have to do with the term click here? Well, I'll tell you. You probably see it all over the web. To download Adobe Reader, click here. To download a W-9 form, click here, right? That's why these pages rank for the term click here. It's because people all over the web use anchor text incorrectly, and because of that, things like this rank for the term click here. So next time you're trying to teach somebody why you don't want to use click here or learn more as a link, boom, here's your example for it. And finally, your site's trusted, right? College websites, university websites are some of the oldest, largest websites on the web. Because of this, Google and other search engines automatically give you some extra mojo in ranking because they know you're not going to be loaded with spam. They know you're not going to be loaded with a bunch of stuff trying to cheat the algorithm. They give you extra love. And that's really important to know. You know, a lot of this on-page stuff and the stuff we're talking about, you can do it mostly right and you're still going to win because they give you that extra mojo. It's really good, really important to know that. And I talk to people all the time that talk about SEO and going back to those you know, companies out in India, they don't get that about higher ed. Is you don't need the kind of help as much because you automatically get it. You get a little added bonus because you're such a trusted site. You're not someone who started up a site 2 days ago trying to sell Viagra, and they wonder why they can't rank for it. That's very spammy. It's very suspicious. So, of course, we're going to be very leery about ranking stuff like that. Google is anyway. All right, so that's kind of the beginning. Now who's ready for the fun stuff? This is kind of the part 2. Let's dive in and talk about a little bit more detail here. So first I want to talk about the importance of RSS. And RSS stands for really simple syndication. And what's so great about RSS is it's a format, it's a structure that allows content to be formatted in and pushed out to different places. To give you an example, if you go to CNN here, in their footer they have, you know, a bunch of different ways you can get RSS feeds. The reality is RSS is very much a geek tool. Only geeks kind of use RSS readers to subscribe and follow blogs and news sites in such a way. And really this is becoming less useful because sites like actually Google Readers actually shut down in the last year, so it's harder for people to do that. But it's still an incredibly powerful tool, and it's an incredibly important thing to tie to something like your newsroom because it's a great way for you to syndicate out and share that, hey, there's new content on my site to consume. And sure, people might not consume it this way, but things like search engines do. And this is where something like FeedBurner comes in. FeedBurner is a free service by Google. They bought it a few years ago. They've done nothing to it, but Google owns it. Therefore, when you have your RSS feed from something like your newsroom, your blogs, whatever else tied to FeedBurner, it standardizes your feed, but it also tells Google, hey, knock, knock, there's new content on my site. Come and index it. Put it in your search results. This is one of those big, big tricks you can do to get ahead. And I will tell you this, playing around with stuff like FeedBurner and getting it set up, and then some of these other things we're going to talk about, I've seen content show up in the search results in as fast as 10 minutes before. Yeah. A new article goes up and you're like, well, when is it going to show up so people can find it? If you're doing these kind of things right and telling the search engines, you'll get found basically immediately. That content will be crawled. That content will be indexed really, really fast. So FeedBurner is one of those great ways. Also, just something else to throw out about RSS feeds. Well, I guess we'll talk about it in a second. I'll hold off. I'm getting ahead of myself. And we talked about 70% of the search traffic really comes from Google. And here's some of the data saying that. This is ComScore. This is actually some data from the beginning of the year. It changes percentage points. Zero, like 67.2, very, very small percentage month to month. But you'll see here how Google is almost 70% of all search traffic. You'll see that it says Google sites, Microsoft sites, Yahoo. And so if you're thinking about how you're going to optimize your content and how you want to get more traffic through search, Google is the big 800-pound gorilla in the room. That's one of the other reasons why using FeedBurner is so important. But also there's lots of other ways to tell Google about content on your website. So Google Analytics, this is a dirty little secret about Google Analytics, is we all use it because we want to know more information about our website, right? Oh, it's great to know, it's free, but why do you think Google gives something so valuable away for free? They give it away for free so they can know more information about your website. If they've got all this analytics code on it and all of a sudden a new page shows up that's getting some traffic, well, that's probably something they want to crawl and put in their index anyway, right? If a page has a very high bounce rate, that's probably a good sign that it's not a good search result. So it gets a little bit of a devalue rating there in the search result. Google, the more information they know, the better search tools they can provide. So giving away stuff like analytics for free is in their best interest. Also, it ties really into AdWords, but that's a whole other discussion. Google Webmaster Tools, same kind of idea. Google Webmaster Tools is a great tool that gives you lots of information about your website. It can tell you how things are broken, allows you to do things like submit a sitemap, tells you how you're ranking on keywords. But once again, they give all that away for free because they want you to give them more information about your website. Google Plus, we all kind of talk about Google Plus. It's kind of the redheaded stepchild of social media sites. It's a big wasteland. Nobody uses it. But once again, there's no reason not to have a Google Plus profile where you're posting news releases and things like that because it tells Google about your new content. So, if you're wanting to get ranked, if you're wanting to get indexed as soon as possible, take advantage of these Google services because it tells Google more and more about you. A little story on that subject. I started up a website about 2 years ago just playing around with something and set up all these things on it, created maybe 15 pages on it. Within a day, I was getting search traffic. Actually, within 4 hours, we got our first organic search visitor. 4 hours. And the reason is because I was telling Google all this stuff about my site. So they knew to rank it, and I just happened to have some good keywords. So I was getting some good traffic. So that matters. That matters. Twitter updates. So we were talking about FeedBurner, or RSS a little bit earlier. And most people don't use RSS, but people do use RSS for programmatic things. And what I mean by this is the Wall Street Journal's Twitter feed. Everybody's always talking about in Twitter, you need to engage, you need to engage, you need to engage. Well, if you look at any of the major news publications, they really don't do any engagement at all. They're news outlets, right? All they do is share content. So I always tell people, if you don't have the time to do engagement of content, be engaged on social media, worst case scenario, you should be sharing the content that you're producing. And it makes it really easy to do that if you have stuff like RSS feed set up, because there are ways that you can take an RSS feed and tie it into Twitter so that as soon as you hit publish on that new article, it automatically goes out to these other services. Twitter, your Facebook fan page, Google Plus profile, whatever it might be. There are programs and solutions that will do that for you. And I think it's really important to take advantage of that because social media is really important to SEO too. And why not? It's one thing that we all know about marketing is it's not about us, it's about our audience. And if our audience wants to consume content in different ways, we should let them. And this is just, once again, a good usability thing that some people might like getting updates about your newsroom, your school from email. Some might prefer by visiting the website on their own. Some might prefer Facebook. Some might prefer Twitter. Let them sign up how they want. If they sign up in multiple locations, they did that, not you. It doesn't matter if it's going out to all the same channels. And to go with that, always share your content. Always share your content. And the rule of thumb here is if you're producing content that you don't feel is worthy to be shared, nobody else is going to feel like it's worthy to be shared either, right? So always be putting out your news releases, things like that on these different channels because it's also helping you on that annuity over time. And the reason for that is because this is one of the newest search engine ranking factors graphs. Searchmetrics put this out beginning of the year, and you'll see here we talked earlier about number of backlinks, right? The voting contest that happens and why inbound links are so important. Well, you actually see in this chart that's number 2. Facebook shares is actually number 1. So what that means is Google is now saying that if someone shares your content on Facebook, it is the most important thing to determining how that page is going to rank in search engines. Backlinks is second, Facebook total, Facebook comments, Facebook likes, tweets, and you'll see how it goes on and on and on down the list here. So social media is becoming very, very important and influential in the ranking process of search engines, as it should, because it's a very on-time, timely manner for the search engines to know about your content. And there was a time and place where Google had full access to what we call the Twitter hose pipe. You know, every single tweet that came out through Twitter went through Google, and they could scan it and crawl it for links and see if there's new content. They don't have the full Twitter hose pipe now, but I guarantee they're still looking at it. Microsoft, on the other hand, does have the whole Twitter hose pipe. I believe they still do. But, you know, we talk about how relevance of news and how things in the media happen so fast now, and you can always find out about things that happen through Twitter faster than anything else. Search engines realize this too, and they're taking advantage of that to try to get them to find out about new content as fast as possible. So social media has got to be tied into your SEO practices, or just by doing social media, you're improving your rankings, if you will. And to that, you need an easy button, right? How are you making your content easy to share on your pages? So on your newsroom, you know, do you have some sort of share this option? You know, a widget there. Do you have ways that people can click on a button and instantly tweet or instantly share it on Facebook? You should. You should be doing that. Because if you're not doing that, you're making it harder to share, and by making it harder to share, it's less likely to get shared, and by being less likely to get shared, you're also impacting your search results negatively. So hopefully you're seeing how all this is starting to tie together. Oh, the psychology of sharing. So I think Mashable probably stick this in our face more than just about any other website. But if you look at their site, you'll see a lot of times now, and I think they've even redesigned it since I took the screenshot, but it's very, very obvious how many people are sharing and liking and promoting their content socially. Well, the psychology of this goes that if a lot of people are sharing something, the likelihood of you wanting to share it goes up because you want to jump on that bandwagon because obviously this is something really cool and it's worth sharing. The downside of that is if you're doing news releases and you're like, well, why do I want to put this sharing stuff on my news site if it's going to be a bunch of zeros, right? Because no one's going to share my news stuff. Well, the dirty little secret here is we just sat here and talked about how you should be sharing every one of your news releases through Twitter, through Facebook, and all those other things. By doing that, you're never going to have zeros, right? Never going to have zeros because you're always going to be sharing your own content. So you're already priming the pipe, if you will, so that you can get more engagement, more sharing, because people don't necessarily know, oh, it says 3 there. They don't know that you have 3 Twitter accounts for your school, and it went on all 3 of them. People don't think like that. You know, marketers think like that, but most consumers of content don't. So, you know, it's more and more important to share your content because there's a whole psychological element to it. We need to not get caught up in it and just push through. So there are other types of content that newsrooms use. You know, we're talking more and more about the, you know, the media-rich press release, if you will. Flickr and YouTube. And I'm kind of using these 2 services to kind of be a proxy for images and video. Because far and away, Flickr is the largest publicly available photo site. Facebook dwarfs it, but so many of the photos on Facebook are private. And YouTube is by far and away such a large part of videos on the web that it's kind of, you know, if you're talking about videos on the web, say YouTube. So how to do SEO for images? Be sure to include an alt text, because once again, search engines are your dumbest, blindest users, right? They can't read that text, so if you don't have some sort of alt text explaining what this image is, they don't know. But also be descriptive on the file name. We talked about being descriptive on the URL. Same thing applies here, right? If I've got President Bob commencement or, DSC0012, which probably came directly out of the digital camera, which one of these two do you think is going to be more meaningful to Google when they're crawling? Probably number one. And it's also using and titling your images this way, including alt text, also helps you rank in Google image search, which why not, right? A lot of people use Google image search for certain images. Why not find your content on your site the same way? So coming back to this same chart we looked at earlier, we talked about Google sites, 67% of all searches in the U.S. Well, notice it says Google sites and not just Google search engine. The reason for that is YouTube is actually the second largest search engine in the world, meaning more people go to YouTube to do a search than people that go to Bing and search for stuff, especially younger people. And by people, I'm talking about, teens and younger. A lot of times they're even lazier than we are about reading stuff on the web and will just rather watch video. So if they can go to YouTube and find a video that explains something or shows them what they want to see, they'll do it, and they enjoy that. And so realize that YouTube is very, very large, very, very important, and it matters a lot that you're optimizing your content for YouTube properly, especially if you're embedding a YouTube video in a press release. So how do you optimize one? And I put up a video last Christmas of my little nephew Bentley, almost doing his ABCs right. You'll see these different arrows, the title, the description, the tags, the categories. Nothing surprising there, nothing we didn't talk about in section 1. And once again, you'll see a little top arrow in the right-hand corner that says the raw file. And that's the file name. We just talked about how file names matter for images. Guess what? File names matter for videos too. And this is a dirty little secret to know, but I've seen videos outrank videos with millions of hits just because the file name actually had the keyword it was going after in it. So this is one of those things that every time I tell somebody, it becomes a little bit less of an advantage, but it's such an advantage still. You can see I'm doing it wrong in this example because this video came out from my cell phone. But if you're producing good quality video and spending $1,000 a minute on it, posting on YouTube, and you're not naming the file properly, you're just throwing away money because not as many people can find it and see it. We don't have money to throw away. All right, internal linking. So another subject here, we talked about the importance of inbound linking. Let's talk about internal linking. So this is a press release on Wofford's website, and you'll notice I've got kind of 2 red arrows here. One for Pulp Theater, and over on the left, Wofford Department of Theater. The moral of the story here is you have no control, really, over how people link to you from other sites. But you have absolute, complete control over who links or how you link on content throughout your site. Why would you not be linking all throughout your site? We talk about a good user experience. If I'm reading a release like this, I probably want to maybe buy tickets, right? And if I buy tickets from the Pulp Theater website or from the Department of Theater, I probably want links directly to that in that release. Same thing applies to any article that you do. If you're talking about the biology department, make that a link to the biology department. Make the anchor text biology department and link to it. It's a better user experience for readers because they're able to dive deeper into your site. You're making it easy for them to do that. And it's also better for search engines. Related content. Big major thing happened a couple of months ago. We announced a new post. What news sites do, this is the Washington Post, do really, really well is at the bottom of articles they have related content, right? More from the Washington Post kind of on related subjects. So you can kind of dive deeper into news on that subject or other news that's kind of happening right now. This is really, really valuable because, once again, we're doing inbound links or internal links to our site, and there's ways to programmatically set this up. Very, very good for the user experience because, once again, they read this article and maybe they want to know more about a related subject. Or secondly, it's really, really good for search engines because it's allowing them to crawl more related content on your site and see these internal links. So take advantage of that. All right, printer-friendly pages and SEO, another subject here for you. If you've got two pages or the same content on multiple pages on the web, we call that duplicate content. And duplicate content is a bad thing because it splits the authority of that content over multiple pages. So meaning, if you had a page that was trying to rank on, I don't know, purple widgets, the keyword, and you had two pages that had the same exact content on it, maybe one's on your website and one's on another URL or another website that's exactly the same content that you've got somewhere else, you're splitting that authority. So instead of ranking second on that keyword, you might have one side that's ranking 12th and the other side that's ranking 30th. That's bad. So this commonly happens when people do printer-friendly press releases or printer-friendly news articles. And there's a lot of different ways you can solve for it here. You see five ways here. You know, I'm kind of keeping it very basic here. You can either do it through meta elements on the printer-friendly pages. You can set up a no-follow link on the link to the printer-friendly page. You can set up style sheets so that it's not actually two pages of content. It's the same content. You're just applying a printer-friendly style sheet. You can set up a rel canonical, and then you can also set up a user agent in your sitemap file to disallow the print versions. So, you know, you can easily take any of these lines and Google it, and get more information on how to do it any one of these ways. But keep in mind that printer-friendly is a good user experience, but it can also be a bad user experience to your search results if done the wrong way. PDF and SEO. PDFs have kind of gotten a punch in the face over the years, black eyes, about being really, really bad for search engine optimization. The truth of the matter is they're not really bad at all. You probably notice in search results all the time. We looked at W9 earlier, actually ranking in search results. PDFs actually do a decent job of ranking as long as it's PDFs with text, you know, like say from Word, and not PDFs full of images, which aren't able to be transcribed. The one piece of advice I will say about PDFs and SEO is there is a page properties section of every PDF. And in that page properties section, it allows you to put a title, a description, and keywords. Imagine that. So it's kind of a little known thing that most of us don't know about. But if you've got PDFs all over the web, or you're using it for news releases and things, please, please make sure that you're doing your page properties properly, because that's going to help you rank better. It's going to help that PDF rank better. Comments in SEO. So a lot of times when we talk about newsrooms, there's that big pushback that we don't necessarily want comments on a news release on a college website, which is totally understandable. From an SEO standpoint, comments really have no impact at all. They don't really help you. They don't really hurt you. And a lot of comment widgets or plugins or whatnot that allow people to comment actually do not allow follow-through link juice or authority to go from anybody that leaves a comment to get a link. And that's, back in the day, that's the reason we have so much comment spam, is because there was a time and place where leaving a comment would allow you to link back to your site, so people started abusing it. And that's why they've kind of turned off the value of it. I will say probably the biggest negative on comments, or maybe a positive, is if people leave comments on a news release, those comments are also searchable. So that can be a good thing or a bad thing. You know, someone says something very negative or derogatory, and people are able to search for it and find that news release. That could be a bad thing. So in the big scheme of things, if you're deciding how or should we include comments on news releases or any sort of other ongoing comment chain, from an SEO standpoint, it really has no impact. So don't worry about it from that angle. Don't feel like you're obligated to do it from that angle. pagination of articles. So pagination of articles, you never, ever, ever want to do this. I'm showing you an article from or an example here from the New York Times of them doing it. Well, the only reason that news sites like the New York Times do pagination is because their revenue model is they make money on display ads. And if they can have an article broken up into 2 or more pages, they can sell 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times the number of ads. Makes sense? You know, we're not in the business of selling ads on our site, and it's a better user experience if they can read the entire article on 1 page and not have to click through a whole bunch of pages. Because you're not making any money by them clicking through pages. If an article is way too long, press release is way too long, and you want to paginate it to shorten it up, you're probably better off just breaking up and making it 2 releases. But don't do it. This is why they do it. It's not about you. It's about them making money, and we see how that business model is working for them. All right, this is kind of a fun one. Google author profiles. So if you'll see a link here at the bottom, plus.google.com/authorship, there's a little step-by-step guide here that you can actually set up your news releases, your blog, whatever else, that when people see the search result, they can kind of see a little picture of the author, the person who wrote the article. This can actually be a good thing for people that want to, click through results, so that people want to say, who this author is. If they see a picture of a friendly face, or just seeing a picture can be a little bit more credible, authoritative, that makes someone want to click through and read that content. And also from your writers, it's a nice pat on the back. It's never a bad idea to stroke the egos of your content producers, and this is a nice little way you can do that, and it makes you want to put out more content, just to get more articles written. But I will say with Google Author Profiles here, it looks like really easy instructions, but I've had about a 50-50 hit rate of actually getting this to work. So if you go do the steps and set it up, and a month from now it's still not showing up from you, please don't come and yell at me, because I've had just as much trouble. Like, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes I wonder if any actual humans work at Google or not, because there's not like a friendly call somebody or chat with me to help me solve this problem. So, give it a shot. It can be really awesome, but I can't guarantee positive results for you. Special rules for Google News inclusion. This is possible to actually include your news releases in Google News. There's some links here about how you can set that up. Once again, it's a great idea. It can be a good idea if you wanted to get a little more prestige out of your college newsroom and pick up some of that, right? Like, when people go search for news, why not find your newsroom? Why not? I have yet to actually do this, but it looks pretty straightforward, and hopefully you'll have a little bit more success with this one than Google authorship. So I've thrown out the word press release a couple times, and press releases are one of those things that have been around for hundreds of years, and for a lot of practical purposes, they're still good for SEO purposes. The 2 big changes we have, see these kind of 2 pictures on them, is click here. Once again, if you're including links in your press release, and we absolutely think you should, there's no reason you ever shouldn't, make sure that the description of that link does not say click here. Make it descriptive, include the text in it. And secondly, it can also be valuable because a lot of the social media, or those press release services, include social media publishing. I've kind of found this hit or miss, because some of those services will just tie into your social media channels so that it publishes that way. Some will actually publish it through their own social media channels, which is great. But these kind of 2 benefits can make press releases actually worthwhile. If you go on PR Web, you could do a basic press release for $100. Obviously, they can get much, much more expensive, but if you're able to get extra inbound links and extra social media shares, that can be well worth $100 a lot of times. If there's certain programs that you're trying to really promote, or something, a big news announcement that you're really trying to get out there, a press release can really be a great way to do that, but also give more inbound love to your website and help you increase your SEO awareness. So, just take advantage of all the things we've talked about and apply it to your press releases, and you'll double win. Personalization, going hyperlocal. Another little good thing. This is Read Media. It's a service out there. You can see the link in the bottom here to their whole slide presentation. The way they're doing student releases, I think, is really, really cool. They set up their own little website, readabout.me, and I just went and searched for Kyle James to see what I found. And wouldn't you know, there's a Kyle James that made the dean's list at University of Wisconsin, Plateville. I'm really proud of him, even though I'm no relation to him. But the idea here is it's really easy. Services like this can take something like your 30, your 20, your 200 kids that made the dean's list and instantly push out unique content with a couple of different things changed, like the name, the physical education member, where they're from, things like that. You can swap it out. It's a great way to produce lots and lots of content. But even more specifically, some stats from that presentation is 97% of newspapers print hometown news from colleges, and 90% of editors consider these stories to be important and must-publish content. So once again, at the very beginning, we talked about journalists, looking for that information. If we're giving them that information that's very relevant to their local papers, they're absolutely going to take advantage of it. They're and it's a cool little SEO tie-in to it to be able to produce lots and lots of content, winning that numbers game by just taking something as easy as your dean students and, writing a different, unique release for every single one of them. So coming to the closing here, and I think I'm running close on time. I guess it's 3 o'clock right now. Some of y'all are probably ready to get. If you're looking for inspiration, I always start looking at other news sites. Yes, you can go out and look at lots of other college news sites, but the big guys are on the bloody cutting edge, and they're doing all this advanced stuff. You've seen some of the examples I've pulled from, how they're doing pagination and related articles. Go start with them. And, I've got U.S. News, NBC News, CNN, but I've also got some other kind of outliers like ESPN and BBC. ESPN does some really great stuff and have really taken advantage of that as a news feed and are doing some of the, bloody cutting edge stuff. So if you're looking for ideas about how to really take your content next level, take a look at what they're doing sometimes. I mean, chances are if you're a guy, you read all the content anyway. So just put on your newsroom lens, your SEO lens a little bit, and think about how you might be able to apply that and take it back to what you're doing on your college newsroom. Edgy styles here, not as updated as it used to be. There is a tag you can go search for news, and you can see lots of newsrooms or schools that have posted theirs. If you want to look from some industry-specific ways that colleges are doing their newsroom. And kind of finally, this is a great, I pulled a quote from Nielsen Norman Group at the very beginning, but this is a free PR report. It's a 3rd edition, meaning it's already been read a couple of times. 292 pages, and in it there's 100+ PR tips and 100+ website design recommendations. It is not specific to higher education. There is a section in it that goes specifically on nonprofits, but for a large standpoint, newsroom is a newsroom. And the content, whether it might be different, a lot of the same general rules apply. And it's a free resource. You can go check it out, download it. I got a lot of ideas from this presentation from this thing. So, maybe if you don't want to go read it, you just gave me an hour and that was good enough for you. But it's available, it's out there, and it's something else that you can take advantage of. And that is it, right on time here. I guess at this time, Becky, do we have time for questions? Do you want to open it up for questions? Does anybody have any questions? So no questions. I probably gave everybody way too much stuff and they're overwhelmed. Well, if there are questions, there's my Twitter handle at the bottom. There's my email address. Well, here's one. What is the first step you'd recommend we take? I always recommend getting your foundation, your house in order first. And that's kind of where we started off with those SEO basics, the building blocks. If your content all on your website, if you're not producing good content and it's not structured and you're doing those things right, a lot of the more advanced stuff we talk about really doesn't matter. And I'd really kind of encourage you or leave you with this thought that all the stuff that we talked about, none of it's really rocket science. It's just doing a couple of little basic things to make sure you're doing some keywords, you're including internal linking, you're doing good page titles, you're sharing your content. They can all fit into your existing processes. And I've kind of, leave you with the thought that if you're not doing all of these things, you're shooting yourself in the foot. You're basically saying that the stuff that I'm doing isn't worthy of the absolute maximum push that I can get out of it. So, take advantage of it. There's these little basic things that you can do, you can get your content people to do that's going to get more exposure, more reach, more, awareness out of your brand and your articles. It's going to be a win-win. So what are you most excited about the future of SEO? I don't know what I'm most excited about the future of SEO. I mean, honestly, I started going down this whole SEO path for exactly the reasons I just told you guys. I felt like I was doing all this work, and I felt like it was worthy of being seen by more people. I feel like, well, our newsroom is putting out great content. More people should see it. How can I do that in a way that I can control? Well, search engines are great, so if we start optimizing and doing more of that stuff, it's going to be more exposed. I don't really even look and think about SEO as being an industry that really changes. Sure, stuff like social media has become more influential to the rankings. I'm sure we're seeing more and more a push of localization matter, meaning that if I'm in South Carolina, there's probably results that are more relevant to me around here than maybe someone who's out in LA. But that, to me, that kind of stuff isn't as exciting as just putting out great content. Now, if I'm putting out great content and wrapping it in some of these best practices, I'll win. Because at the end of the day, if you have great content, absolutely fantastic content, and you don't do any of this stuff right, you're still going to beat out most people. Because great content, people will figure out a way to share it. People will figure out a way to link to it. So, I get more passionate about some of the content strategy, if you will. But all these best practices is my kind of, I sleep better at night knowing that, what, if I would have done this right, maybe I'd have gotten 100 extra people to see that yesterday. And what would that have meant to my business or my school? All right. Well, thanks everybody for attending. There's my contact information if you've got any other questions, anything I can do, and I appreciate your time today.